and welcome to another round of the Daily Minute. And it's Tuesday, so it's Around the World International Day. Let me get going because there's a lot of countries to cover. So, starting with our friends over in India, I don't know if you've heard, it's new news this morning that they postponed IMTEX. So IMTEX was going to be in late January of 2021, and they just made the decision in the last day to postpone it to June. So it'll be the 17th or 23rd, coming out in June. So ongoing concerns there about bringing in a large international group. Some 30% typically would be involved, and so obviously there's an issue when it comes to bringing that many folks from around the world, as well as concerns just in general still there with where they're at with Corona. So they've got that going on, and also geopolitical issues. The China-India skirmish didn't help things, certainly from a commerce standpoint. It's definitely an effect on big trade, big deals. Huawei, another potential impact with another country because of it, and some change in telecommunication things from the government standpoint, and a reluctance from really a lot of the Indian people then to be getting Chinese products brought in, which is a big part of where the market was. So just some ongoing geopolitical issues there that aren't really helping. Speaking of China, swinging over there, and speaking of trade shows, Shanghai 2020 trade show coming up in just a little while is going on. So it shows kind of where they're at this particular point in time relative to dealing with COVID. And we actually have some of our STC members that are going to be exhibiting there. So a little bit different conditions going on there. Economy still recovering and doing well, getting a really big boost from a positive test they just did recently in Shanghai of the new maglev train, 600 kilometers per hour. That went well. So they're going to be launching a bunch of new construction projects and infrastructure projects built around that particular product. And that's really interesting as well from the standpoint of what it means overall for equipment. So the rail industry is one of two fully vertically integrated industries that gets a lot of government funding. Aerospace industry and the rail industry, they've already gotten 120 billion allocated this year, and so that comes no matter what. It's coming from the government to a key industry. And 10% of that typically goes to buying equipment. So that's a lot of money, $12 billion that would be kind of coming towards our industry in the equipment space. So it's really good news. Made numbers, you can start to relate to that with these infrastructure projects they have going on. Construction's up almost 40%. You take a look at excavators alone, we talked about this before, up 82%. If you look at smartphones, smart TVs, SUVs, trucks, all up. And so production kind of starting to really move along there, which is good. Going over to Mexico, still some issues there, but they're slowly transitioning and continue to find ways to kind of get their factories going. They're moving in many cases to a 4-day work week of 10 hours to 12 hours in order to minimize the amount of time people actually have to travel from location to location. So it takes 1 day of travel out of the work week, and that seems to be going over well. VW in Pueblo is opening back up and getting into production. Pueblo was one of the areas that was pretty hard hit, and so they're going to be going to a 3-shift program, which is also what they're doing in Juarez right now, another very hard hit area, kind of hitting 3 shifts, and also talking about making big investments into cobots. So helping with some of that distancing, kind of helping with some of the automation, really kind of making big investments into the whole cobot area. Also keep in mind on July 1, USMCA comes into full effect. So a lot of work's been happening in the background, and everyone's hoping that, well, enough work's been happening that it's not going to impact a very fragile recovery that's going on right now, but hopefully they've done enough work so that comes off well. Brazil, not as good from a COVID standpoint, 100,000 new cases recently, but on the positive side, they've got 100,000 recoveries also that they can track. From our sector standpoint, remember me talking before about Romy getting into the rental business and trying to move some of that inventory into the rental mode. Now there's other companies that are jumping in the space in the same thing. So it seems to be getting traction, more of that happening there. Capital goods imports up 15% there, but there have been some issues, same as other places, with supply chain issues on automotive parts. And so as you try to get these factories going, getting key components consistently fed in is really impeding. Quick drive over to Europe. Europe GDP numbers, things better than where people thought. Germany thought they'd be about -7%. They're tracking closer to -2.2. France was closer to 6, even looking at where they were -6 in the last quarter, and is really much closer to 5 as they look at the current situation. UK at 2%, -2, not too bad. PMIs for all of those guys are right around the 40s. Germany 45 in that, so you roughly get a figure where they're at. I wanted to get the top side of 50, of course, being key. Last thing there, UK and France are joining a lot of other groups working on reshoring. So reshoring things back from India, bringing it back from China, Poland, the Czech Republic, and interesting enough, bringing it out of Germany as well. So the reshoring initiative goes on around the globe as people look at being more self-dependent and bringing things back to their own territories for manufacturing. So that's a little bit what's happening around the world. I'll be back at you again tomorrow. And again, if you have questions about anything happening internationally, you can certainly get a hold of Ed Christopher at our Global Services Department, or if you need data and information, of course, Pat McGibbon, relative to those markets, along with Chris Downs. So hope that helps. Have a great day. We'll catch up to you tomorrow.